want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want, and I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
That's right. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kirk M. Samuels.
I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
For you.
For you. Not
For you.
It's all about you, baby.
For you.
This is your world, not just squirrel. Where's the nuts?
This is for you. We have these conversations, and man, we just like to bring it to folks, man. We just like to bring it to folks all over the place.
It has been brought in.
KLDC 1220 on the AM side of the dial in the Mile High City, and of course on the interwebs everywhere. On the interwebs all over the place, man. You got a podcast platform, you search for us on there. You got like on my Roku at home, they got an iHeart app on there, and I looked in iHeart, boom, logo is right there. All over the place, interwebs everywhere, man.
Spotify, iTunes, if you can listen to it, we're there.
YouTube, Facebook, of course. Hey, if you're watching this, hook some brothers up. It don't cost you nothing to hit the subscribe button. It really don't. But it helps us kind of advance our movement, our cause. It kind of helps us do what we do. And, it kind of helps the algorithms to say, hey, these guys are doing something and we should let other people know. So hook us up. Hit the little button. You know how it is. You heard everybody say, hit the like and subscribe, please. So hook us up, man. Do that thing.
Yeah, and if you're listening to us in the car on the radio, just hit the horn. That'll work.
Don't hit the horn, man. Somebody might, you get some road rage and you're going to try to blame it on us. Cops come.
He said hit the horn.
Cops come and madmen told me to hit the horn. Madmen told me to hit the horn.
So why they always going to blame it on me? Why can we blame it on me for?
I don't know, man.
I just say things. Doesn't mean y'all got to do it.
Hey, man, this is, man, I kicked it out. I think we got a great little topic here.
Yeah, this is your topic. I'll let you kick it off, but I think I know where you're going with this, sir. But what brought this up?
So I came across it was a YouTube short, I think, maybe, or like a TikTok or something like that. And ironically, the irony or whatever you want to call it, but it just so happened to be like a TikTok short or whatever you call them things. And it was somebody was interviewing Michelle Obama or something like that, and they were she went on like a few minute rant about the idea of 50-50, especially in marriage and in relationships. And it really resonated to me. It really hit home because her whole point was that 50-50 doesn't really exist at any one period of time for the most part in relationships. And so I was like, man, that is profound right there, man. That's a good thing to unpack on the Mad Men. The whole idea of 50-50 is a myth.
Yeah. I mean, I knew this is where you're going with it, but I'm happy to dive in because the whole idea of, okay, I'm going to give you half of myself for this most important of things, my intimate personal relationship, which leads to family, which leads to community and children and all these different things, like the bedrock of what everything is based on, and how people go, I'll give you half of myself. I'll give you 50%, maybe. No, you got to be 100% committed. Both of you in the relationship got to be 100% committed. And at each time when one of you can't be 100% committed because you got stuff going on, the other person's got to pick up the slack. I think to your point of what Michelle Obama was saying, like that's the thing. Is sometimes you got to be there and be willing to take more of the responsibility for that relationship while the other person is going through what they're going through. Oh my goodness.
So there's a book out there. It's a great book out here. It's called 7 Secrets of Modern Dating. She said guide to getting from single to spouse.
It's like number 1 in 7 categories, right?
Amazon bestseller, just saying. At the beginning of the 7th step, which is going all in. The very beginning of that, it might be on the very first page of that chapter. It says, there's no such thing as 50-50. It's 100-100. Like you got to be all in. The whole point of that step is going all in. You got to be all in really any kind of relationship. When you say, this relationship got to be 50-50, then you're already setting yourself up for a conditional in or a conditional out, because your 50 never feels like the other person's 50 from you. Like what you think is well, I came this far. The other person is saying, yeah, but that's not really as far as I come. And then you end up going back and forth about, who's doing more and who this and that, and it just never really works out in terms of a dynamic of any kind of relationship.
And I mean, that is the definition of conditional relationship. If you're not coming in with 100% of yourself, wanting to serve with 100% of who you are to that relationship. And that's one of the reasons we do this show, one of the reasons we talk about healthy masculinity, because I'm sorry, I know it's not PC nowadays, but men and women are different. You have different strengths, you have different weaknesses, and you need to bring 100% of yourself to that family so that you can have that whole energy, the masculine feminine dynamic energy for that relationship to grow, for the kids to grow healthy, and to create a healthy, long-lasting relationship. But if you're like, I gave you 50, you're already doomed for failure. You're already thinking selfishly.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. When you say 50-50, you are almost by default looking for the other 50 from the other person, as opposed to what your input is in to whatever it is. And so it sets you up for failure, because you get into the expectation of receiving as much as you get into the expectation of giving. Probably more about receiving than giving, because you're always trying to compare. You're always in the back of your mind thinking, well, where am I at? And when it gets uncomfortable, no, they need to, that just means that they're not putting in and all this other kind of stuff. And it just doesn't work out in any kind of context, whether it's intimate relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships, whatever those kinds of things are. When you're in a connection, when you're in any kind of relationship with any kind of other person or other people, I mean, as soon as you put a restraint or a constriction on that whole thing of half, 50-50, all that kind of stuff, you're just doomed for failure.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it from a simple mathematical equation, if you're saying I'll bring 50%, then what you're basically saying is my partner has to bring 150%. But if you want to have a complete relationship, you both got to bring 100%. Well, what you're saying is, hey, partner, not only am I not going to bring all of me, you got to bring more than even you have to complete this relationship. And then you wonder why your relationships burn out. Now, if you're just dating, okay, bring 50%. You're going to spread yourself thin and all that. Go ahead. But that's probably one of the reasons you may not be having success in relationships, because you're like, well, I don't want to commit 100% because what if I get hurt? Well, there's no guarantees in life. But if you don't go in 100%, you're guaranteed to get hurt. You're guaranteed not to have a fulfilling relationship. You're guaranteed not to have the love and respect and intimacy that you really want, because you're too busy holding back and guarding yourself. Well, intimacy is all into me see. That means you got to open up and let them in, fellas. You got to open up and let them in, but you got to be willing to take the risk. You got to be willing to say, this is my heart on a platter. I'm going to trust you with it. Please do not dice it up and serve it as sushi at the next Thanksgiving.
And that's a great point in terms of, in terms of people being afraid to get hurt, or afraid to get hurt again, or afraid to be taken advantage of, or any of that kind of stuff. That's operating out of fear of what might happen, instead of, everything that does happen. I know someone that used to play professionally, used to play in the National Football League, and he's a defensive back. He happens to be a pastor now, but he's a defensive back. And one day he and I were just having a sidebar conversation, and and he was like, man, I tell you what, he said, when you got a big old running back or fullback coming through that hole, and you going down in that hole to meet them, you better have it resolved in your spirit that you're all in on that whole thing, because if you're not all in, it ain't going to end good for you. And so you absolutely have to be all in, and to some degree, you got to move forward without the fear of fear. I mean, you got to move forward without well, what if this might happen? And I know, that's a lot to ask. And I've been there too. I've been hurt. I've been disappointed. I've been let down. I've been rejected, all those kinds of things. So I get all that. But when we operate out of fear of what might happen, and then the other thing that is, once you've been hurt, or once you've been rejected or taken advantage of, then for sure your 50 is never going to be 50. Ever, because you already made up in your mind, well, that ain't gonna happen again, and so, man, I'm not going that far. So you're 50, however many times you've been hurt, you can take off, you can take off 7.5% of your 50 for every time you've been hurt. And so if you've been hurt, a couple of times, and guess what? You already at 35% thinking it's your 50%, because that 15% is your buffer zone for not getting hurt again.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we harp so much on personal responsibility and going through therapy or counseling or dealing with your traumas and dealing with those things that are making you afraid. Because just like Kirk said, if you haven't dealt with that, then you're bringing even less of yourself to the table. You're bringing less of who you are. And that may be why it's such a challenge to find somebody to actually see who you are and love you for who you are, because you're not even bringing all of who you are. And if you're not dealing with those things and you're coming into these relationships with fear and saying, I'm only going to give 50% because I'm afraid of being hurt, you're destined to repeat the cycle. Plus, you're punishing this new person for your past. You're punishing this guy for the last guy who cut you, or for the trauma you had in your childhood you haven't dealt with, or all these other things that have not been dealt with and turned into a wisdom and strength. Because the memory without the emotional attachment is wisdom, and the only way you get that is by talking out, going through that, and looking at it from, because now you're older, you've had that experience. Instead of recreating that experience day after day in your mind, you can say, hey, that happened, that is no longer true. Now I can look at this from a point of wisdom and say, that was then, this is now. Now I've grown and I learned from it.
And how many people do punish people in their present or future because of somebody in their past? And we project these things on the other person. We literally make them like a screen, like a TV screen, or some kind of just a screen to watch something on. But we're like the projector, and in our eyeballs, we project everybody or everything or somebody or something from our past onto that person. And so when they show up, we automatically put them in the category of what might happen or what has happened with somebody else, and all those kinds of things. And so when we show up in the space of fear, when we show up in the space of worrying about those kinds of things, then we're definitely just due and destined to end up seeing exactly what we're looking for in that other person, even though that other person is not really exemplifying a lot of things that we think they are, we think that they're putting out there. It just doesn't work that way.
You can pull those things. I've had several relationships during my Captain Seba, days, where they had this expectation of bringing out the worst in a guy, or a guy's going to do this, or a guy's going to do that, and then basically did everything they could, consciously and subconsciously, to make me that guy. Even though I'm like, that's not me, that's somebody else, I'm not that guy. And after a while, you either drop your guard, you get sucked into the drama, or you just get fed up. You're like, oh, whatever, I'm that guy, I'm out of here. You just get tired of it.
Speaking of out of here,
you want to get out of here?
Let's get out of here for a minute. Let's get out of here for a minute. I don't know. We're on the 12th floor, man. Let's not get out of here on the window. Let's get out of here with the door and
these windows don't open.
You're right, they don't open. Window. But for now, let's not go anywhere. Let's just take a pause for the cause. And
don't touch that dial.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM, Mile High City, and interwebs everywhere. Be right back.
You can mute my microphone so you don't hear my go.
So if you're watching this, there's this thing, JBK says when I don't mute my microphone and I take a drink.
Go ahead.
All right, let's see.
I can tell you. You can hear that. It's nasty. It's nasty.
Can y'all hear that?
Can't tell him what's up.
Can y'all hear that? He says you can hear that on the microphone when I take a drink of Man Nectar.
I ain't making
body armor. It's Man Nectar. Tropical.
Come up with a nuisance. That's why they ain't calling. You got that nasty slogan.
That's why. But if they call me, then we can do this thing. I'm telling you, that'll catch on, Man Nectar. But so he's saying that every time I do that, you can hear it. I don't know. Y'all tell me.
You can hear it.
But I did mute when I took a drink the first time. Yeah, I did mute that because I'm trying to.
I'm glad you waited to the break before you did your throat.
Yeah, that was the test. I don't know. Be curious. Speaking of which, somebody, if you're watching us live, you can comment on this bad boy, and if you're watching us live on Facebook in particular, you can comment on this thing, and JBK will make you famous. He'll put a comment right up on the screen, and we love to hear your feedback.
Madden Radio on Facebook.com.
Yeah,
we
we love to hear some feedback, whether you agree or disagree. Now, there's some people we just say thank you, or thank you. There's a couple out there, people out there that
you know who you are.
Reality is, we would just rather not engage with certain folks. We ain't got time for
very,
that.
very nice and up and coming gentlemen. We do our best to be as accommodating as possible, and if we don't respond, take a hint.
Then go away.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're back.
We kinda
Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC 12:20 a.m. in Mile High. And yeah, we're talking about taking a hint.
We kind of back. Yeah, we telling, you know.
We talking stories.
We got some behind the scenes here. If you go on social media and all that, you can see our behind the scenes and our breaks or whatever. But yeah, we talk about some of the
some
craze out there. It is what it is. You know, we got some folks that are stalking us, hunting us down, trying to make sure they change who we are and what we do, and we just give them the hype.
If we look at it from a higher perspective, it's a good thing. Because if
Sure.
you're not doing good in the world, if you're not attempting to make a change, then you're not getting any attention. You're not getting any haters. And so I guess we're doing good in the world.
I guess we're doing a good thing. Yeah.
So,
And there's some people that say they disagree, mostly women.
yeah. Well, hey, if you're a woman, you're watching this, and you agree with everything we say, you're a man.
Yeah.
So
There's no way around that.
just saying.
If you agree with everything, like if we don't say anything that shakes your sense of consciousness, something that rattles your cage of like, oh, is that true? Like for real? Then if we don't say nothing like that, then yeah. But every now and then, at least, there should be some stuff that you say, really? Or no, I disagree or something like that. But then there's some people that just won't. Yeah.
Well, and that's why we do this, and why most of our audience are females, because I just assumed that they got tired of listening to their girlfriends about what men want and decided to listen to some men about what men want.
Absolutely.
And of course, if you're learning something new, you're going to be like, huh?
Yeah.
Really? Is that true?
And
so.
And so today we're talking about the myth of 50-50 and the fact that 50-50 is a myth. One of the word pictures in the aforementioned book, 7 Secrets of Modern Dating, the He Said, She Said Guide to Getting from Single to Spouse, Amazon, near you. Anyhow, one of the word pictures in there is a campfire. And in that campfire, when you're in a relationship with someone, and I think almost basically pretty much in any capacity, there is a campfire between you two, and it's one of those things that it's both people or everyone that's around that campfire. It's everyone's job to contribute to that campfire, to maintain that campfire, to keep that fire alive. And that fire needs fuel, that fire needs air. That fire has certain needs. Sometimes you need to turn some logs, and sometimes you need to add a log, whatever. Sometimes you need to fan the flame. But in any case, it's everyone's job to keep that campfire alive. And at no one time is everyone doing the same exact thing to keep that campfire alive. And so I might be putting a log on, and obviously we don't need all the logs on at the same time. Obviously, we don't need wind or a fan. There's different needs that it has that we can be doing from different perspectives. But in any case, we're both working to maintain this campfire, and that looks different in a whole lot of cases. That looks different in probably almost everything day to day that we're doing to keep this campfire alive.
Yeah, some of y'all need to go back to Boy Scouts, back to Girl Scouts, go back camping, get out in the woods and start a fire, and learn that there are ways to get a fire going. There are healthy ways to get it going, and there's ways where you just pour some gasoline on it and blow yourself up. I mean, you can make the pyramid, you can give it some air, you can give it some kindling. You need heat, air, and fuel for a fire. And there are ways to make a fire work. But if we use that same analogy for relationships, there are ways to make a relationship work where it's much more efficient, it works well, and that usually means each of you bringing 100% of yourself, acknowledging your masculine and feminine differences, and accepting your jobs and your strengths and your weaknesses, and working together as a team, versus you build a fire, I'll sit over here and do my nails, or you build a fire, I'll sit over here and drink a beer. No, this is a team effort, it's a family effort, it's a whole village mindset that you need to have when it comes to coming into relationships and dropping this whole 50-50 mindset. That comes from fear, that comes from scarcity, that comes from not wanting to be fully committed to any one thing.
And you talk about the team. When I'm thinking of, let's say, football, for example, American football. Coach Prime in the house. Come on, holler at your boys.
Shout out.
But when you think of, like, let's say American football, for example, one part of the team is on the field at any given time, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, whatever. And it's everyone's job to contribute to the win, or it's everyone's responsibility to take for the L, for the loss. So while one is on the field, that doesn't mean that one aspect of the team is solely responsible for the success of that team. It is your strength versus your strength. And while one is on the field, the other one might be on the bench. They might be regrouping. They might be getting some liquids. They might be getting warm if it's cold, whatever it is. So at any one time, even though one part of the team is on the field, the other part of the team is still in the fight. They're still in the game, even though they might not be active in what's happening on the field. And so therefore, the balance and all that whole thing, if we're in a masculine feminine dynamic, then there might be times where you're giving and I'm receiving. And there might be times where I'm receiving and you're giving. Or maybe I said that the same thing, whatever. You get the point.
You know what I said.
You know what I said. You know what I meant. But either way, it's an ebb and flow. And if I don't keep score, but whatever I'm doing, I'm receiving 100% or I'm giving 100%, serving 100%, then I'm not only doing any one of them halfway. I'm doing everything all of the way. And as the tide comes in and out, all boats will rise and all boats will fall based on that tide. But at the same time, that balance comes in of who's on the field, who's doing what at what moment.
Yeah, and to that analogy, the football analogy, ladies, and we talk to you guys all the time about this, if you are tired of taking 100% responsibility, if you're tired of doing the job, paying the bills, raising the kids, being the mom and the dad and the grandparents and aunts and uncles, doing all that stuff, and you feel wore out, it's because you are taking this 100%, I need to be 100% in the wrong direction, because you actually bring 100% of yourself, your feminine self, to a masculine man. He brings 100% himself. Now each of you are doing 50% of the work, maybe even less if you have an extended family and you create this dynamic even better. So we see so many, I'll say the guys too, there's lots of guys out there that are just struggling doing it all by themselves because we forgot that having a relationship is 100-100. It's about intimacy and coming together and using each other's strengths and honoring and respecting that that's your job, this is my job, and I'm going to do that, because we talk about a lot. It's not codependence. It's not independence. It's interdependence. That means I go to work, I trust you to do your job. You go do your job and trust me to do my job. So we know that we're taking up, offense and defense. We're taking care of business on our side. And that's how interdependence works. It's not about what you do for me, it's about what we do together, what we do for each other, what we do for the greater whole of the relationship.
I've had this conversation several times with several different women that I assure you this is multiple. And I'm talking, man, we're talking dozens at this point. I hear the same narrative over and over again. And, where in this conversation it goes something like this. I'm tired of doing everything. I got to go to work. I got my kids. I got my, I got to come home. I got to clean. I got to cook. I got to, I just want somebody to, to come and help me out and come and take some of this load away. Then somehow I spin it back to them. And when I spin it back to them, I'm like, well, so if that person shows up, are you going to be willing to step back? Like, if that man that you say you're looking for shows up, are you going to be willing to take your hand off of the door handle? Are you going to be willing to get maybe behind him sometimes and follow his lead sometimes? Are you going to be willing to take his feedback or his structure or maybe to some degree his correction in some ways? In terms of some things you might be doing, like, are you willing to put some of the weight down so that somebody else can help pick some of the weight up and help carry it? Or are you so entrenched in I got to do everything, I got to be everything, that you're going to be stuck doing and being everything because you don't have the ability to allow somebody else to come in and to help you with that thing, to help you carry that load, to bring their 100 to match with your 100, and then and then multiply each other.
Yeah, and if you just had that thought run through your mind that I will if he does X, Y, and Z. I will if you're closed down, you're 50-50, you're not even open to that man coming in. And I'm telling you what, ladies, most of the men nowadays have got a heightened sixth sense for you feminists, masculinized women who want to do everything and be in control of everything, but don't know how to be feminine and receive and open up and allow a man to come in and be a man. He can smell you a mile away, and that's why most of you are going, I can't find no good man, because probably he just sidestepped you, gave you the Heisman and bounced before you even saw him, because he could just sense that masculine energy radiating off you. And he was like, I don't have time, I don't have the energy, I don't want to deal with it. Juice is not worth the squeeze. I'm sorry.
And as soon as you show up in, I'm a strong woman, strong things don't get help. Strong things don't get help. I mean, as soon as you show up in that, I got this, and and my head's strong, and I'm a strong, independent woman. Okay, well, go ahead then. Bye, Felicia. Thank you, next. He'll do the proverbial swipe. And it's like, why do men just, that's because he ain't got time for all that. If you can't, maybe he just knows right up front that it ain't a good fit. Maybe he just knows that, you're bringing your strength in your masculine, but I am masculine strength. And so therefore it is a lack of a better word, an energetic homosexual relationship. And maybe he ain't looking for that. Maybe he's looking for some feminine that needs a man. I mean, I don't need no man, blah, 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 then maybe, okay, well then don't complain that you ain't got one.
Yeah,
but if you bring that strength and I don't need and all that other kind of stuff, then guess what? You're probably going to get a guy that says, I know I'm bringing some stuff I have to offer and you don't need what I have, so thank you very much.
Yeah, most likely he has boys. He has guy friends. He probably doesn't need another one, dressed in a female body. So just saying, bring the feminine.
So if you bring your 100% feminine, up and down, because femininity is not linear. Like femininity is fluid, it's dynamic. When you get in your feminine, let's be honest, sometimes it's kind of crazy, it's kind of hectic. Emotions, hormones, all this other kind of stuff, your thoughts, and so random. And that's just, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm saying that's you in your radiance and your femininity. Now, I'm not saying a guy's going to sign up for your crazy, to a degree, but what I'm saying is when you show up and you're 100% feminine, you know what, I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring what I have to offer to this man that I want what he has to offer. Then it can come together. And if you say you want a man that has available to offer to you masculine strength and structure and some level of protection and safety and all those other kind of things, then you got to be willing to step out of that and bring 100% of what that kind of man is looking for.
And if you're worried, if you just had the thought legs, like, I don't think any man can handle my crazy, don't worry. If you come in 100% in your feminine, in your natural goddess energy, there's going to be a man that finds you crazy, the hottest thing in the world. And on that note, we're going to take a hot break.
A hot break. We're going to take a hot one.
Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High. We'll be right back.
Boom! I'm telling you, man, I probably had that conversation in multiple dozens of times. Well, I'm telling you, multiple dozens of times, man. Where it's like, look, you say, I'm hearing you saying what you say you want, but if you ain't willing to be what that kind of guy wants, then you're never going to get that kind of guy. And you can't tell me that you're tired of carrying the load of everything in life. And guess what? There are some loads in this world that are masculine loads. There are some things that a man is more equipped to carry than a woman. That's biological. That's
Well, it's like when you hear someone say, "I want a traditional man. I want a man to lead and to provide and to protect me." But I'm not going to do those things that allows that man to do that. I'm not going to be agreeable and feminine and soft and submissive to his leadership. That doesn't mean you're a slave. I mean, we did the whole submissive episode. That does not mean slavery. It means he's going to say things like, hey, maybe don't bring your Louis Vuitton purse to outside Chicago.
Ooh, great example.
Just saying.
By the way, she was like, oh, I forgot about that. And she was like, you were right.
Yeah, don't bring, I don't even care if it's a knockoff. Don't bring that downtown.
Right.
Leave without it.
For real. So anyhow, boom. And we're back.
We're back.
We be back.
It's us again.
It's us.
It's those guys.
Mama is the bad men.
Bad man.
Mama is the bad men again.
It's on the radio.
For real. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. You know what I'm saying? Living just enough for the city. Living just enough for the city. That's old school. Some of y'all don't know about that.
They have the songs on other parts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's yeah. No, this ain't like music radio.
I got a face for radio and a voice for print.
I got a voice for talk radio. That's for sure. I ain't got a voice for singing nothing.
You know you love us.
For real.
You know you love us.
Because we're talking about 50-50 and a myth of 50-50. Now, we're talking about going all in, all chips in kind of thing when you're in that relationship. Now, am I saying do that right up front, out of the gate? Probably not. You should probably make sure you can trust this person to a degree. Now, you should probably make sure that you're going all in with somebody you should go. I've gone all in with the wrong person before. I've gone all in.
I think we all have. That's how we learn who the wrong person is.
Absolutely. And that's not advised. That'll leave you crying on the side of the bed, snotting and all that other kind of nonsense.
I had a conversation at the B-Men Christmas thing this weekend last weekend about I was talking to this gentleman. He's like, my son's 17 and he's with this girl. And I just so much want to stop him from doing these things. And I'm like, his brain's not moving for him because he's 17 plus. He's got to make those mistakes. You got to be there with your arms open going, all right, son, what did we learn? What did we gain from this experience? We cannot save everybody from themselves. We just got to be there to go, all right, what's your responsibility in this? And what did we learn and what do we take forward?
But there's a reason why I say that seventh step is going all in, because there's 6 before that, right? There's a lead up to getting to the point where you go all in. You definitely shouldn't go all in right out of the gate with somebody you don't even know, somebody you can't trust with all your chips.
That's called love bombing.
That is absolutely called love bombing, and that's just not being smart at all. And how many of us have done that?
I don't know nothing about that.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just going to look in the camera, look at myself then. How about that? But then they're done. So absolutely should you not go all in 100% with somebody at some point too soon. However, when you're the type of person that your trust factor, your trust bar is wounded, then you'll push that thing out so far, you'll set a bar that they can't meet. It'll be, well, they're not this and they're not that, and you're not ready to trust anybody. But you put this person in a position of, I'm waiting for them to earn my trust or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you put that American Ninja Warrior obstacle course in front of them and ask them to jump through all these hoops to prove to you that you trust them. Well, you know what? That just means you're wounded.
Right. And then when they fall or when they, mess up on the warp wall or whatever, when they go up the warp wall and they can't do it, then it's, see, I knew it. So at some point, you got, I'm talking all things being equal. I'm talking you being healed, you doing your work ahead of time. This is kind of the end game step. This is the last thing you do is to go all in. But at some point, you do have to go all in, just not right up front. That's just not smart.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of us are lonely and we're tired of being alone and we're starting to figure it out. We're reading all the books, we're listening to Mad Men and all the other podcasts, and we're going, I'm starting to figure this out. Now I think I'm ready. That's when you got to be especially careful, because you're going to be looking, nose wide open, eyes wide open, looking for the next person who meets some of your criteria. And that's when you especially got to be careful, because it may just be another step along the path of learning. You may just go, oh, I mean, it happened to me recently where I was like, this girl meets all of these criteria. And then when we met, I was like, I made up this whole story about, this person, checks all my boxes. And then we met, and it was like, it was this almost familiar energy. It was like we were family, like we were siblings or something. It was just like, I made up this whole story.
And that's because we fill in the gaps. We fill in the spaces of everything we wish they were, right? And then so all of this whole conversation is basically when it goes bad. Is what we're getting to. It goes bad because we do see the person, and when we see the person, we see all of the things that we like, all the things that we want to like. We ignore all of the red flags, and then we fill in all of the spaces, all the gaps of who they not with who we wish they were or who we want them to be. And then we end up going all in with the person we should, and then we end up hurt. Sometimes, obviously not every time. Hopefully, like in your case, you kind of saw it before it was too late. But I can't tell you how many guys, I can't tell you how many women I've heard like, ooh, man, I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Not with that one, I shouldn't have. Not with that one, I shouldn't have.
Well, and that's why, like you're saying, you got to let them fill in the blanks. That's why you got to slow down and take your time. And I know we get excited. We're all like kids in a candy store. It's Christmas morning, and Santa's come, and all the gifts are under the tree, and you're ready to rip them open and all that. You got to be an adult. You got to have a little bit of discipline and slow it down. Because crazy usually has about a 3 to 6 months shelf life. So
Does crazy have a runway?
It's got a runway.
Does it?
They can usually hang on to their normal looking selves that keep that normal mask on.
But it'll come out. It'll come out. You give it a minute, you know.
And honestly, I was actually watching some YouTube video, and they were talking about how hard dating is. What's really interesting is there's a lot of people who call themselves good daters. And they go on all these dates, and they're like carbon copies because they're saying all the right things. It's you can almost like swap each person you're on a date, and just fill in the blank. And what was cool about the interaction was the guy that she was on a date with called her out and was like, I'm really enjoying myself, but it would be much better if I could find out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing who you are. And if you're having these issues where you're waiting out somebody's normal mask to see they're crazy, just be yourself. And let them see who you are, and I guarantee it'll come out quicker. And we're all being too nice on these days.
Yeah, and then this is why it's a great skill to be able to listen, not hear. There's a difference between hearing and listening. See, we can hear what somebody's saying and fill in the gaps, but when you listen to what somebody's saying, the gaps normally fill in themselves. But it takes time to actually get to know a person. It takes time to hear a full message, right? I use audiobooks, Audible on my phone. It takes time for me to hear and to listen to an entire book. I can hear the audio, but in order to listen to the book, it takes however many chapters, however long it is. And so this is why it's a skill relationally to be able to listen to somebody, which, listening is an art. Sharing is an art. And so not only is it listening to the other person, listen to what they say and what they don't say, but you can listen to people's actions, but and then at the same time being able to share who you are, being able to share your heart and share the things you're about. And then as you begin to share back and forward and it becomes a mutual exchange, then it's like, okay, now we're starting to see some things line up. Now we're starting to see some checks. Some boxes are getting checked. We're on the same page with this. We're on the same page with that. We believe in the same ways here and there, and that person is serving or pouring into your cup as you're pouring into their cup. It's mutual. Nobody's texting way more than the other person, and nobody's calling, nobody's doing all those kinds of things. And that's when you begin to actually not only listen to the things that they say, but you can listen to their actions to find out, is this a 100 kind of person?
Yeah, and if you just take the time to listen, people will tell you who they are.
They will.
All you got to do is listen and believe them. And that's the problem. Is we make up stories that don't believe them, and then later on, like, oh, maybe I should listen. And something you said earlier, one of the things I find the most interesting is if you, ladies, if guys are ghosting you, or if things aren't working out, maybe it's because you're coming in 50%. Maybe it's because you're coming in with expectations. Maybe it's because you're not being 100% in that relationship. Because a lot of times what we see is a guy will come in, and because he is expected to put in, be the chaser, be the initiator, be the instigator, and he's putting out his effort. And at some point, all of a sudden, he just stops. Like, he's always initiating texts, he's always initiating calls, he's always initiating dates, he's always the initiator. Then at some point, he just stops, and then you never hear from him again. It's because he got tired of initiating. He wasn't getting any reciprocation, which is disrespect to him. And ladies, respect is love to a man. If you are disrespecting him, he will put up with it for so long before he's like, all right, and most of the time that's the test. He's like, just like you ladies test us, give us the crap test, and go, whatever the thing is, can he be a man and deal with my stuff? A man will test you as well, and so is she going to reciprocate? And if you don't, if you expect him to do all 100%, and he just stops texting you or stops calling you, you don't reciprocate, be like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a couple days, how's it going? He's like, well, juice is what it's squeezed, I'm going on.
I don't have empirical data to support this. It's all theory, what I'm about to say.
The study I just
did in my head of my life and other people's, mainly mine. But I believe, so, it is empirical that, women initiate breakups and divorce 80-90% of the time.
70 to 80% of divorce.
So that being said, I believe that when a relationship ends or in divorce court, whatever you want to call it, that why she ended that relationship, it was something that she knew about him when they got together or before they got married. In other words, it's something that she overlooked. It was a character trait, a character flaw, or something that she overlooked, whether it was an addiction, whether it was a habit, whether it was something. Conversely,
she didn't overlook it. She thought she could change it.
no, well, that too.
I can make him better. I can make him the man I want him to be.
Conversely, and this is the part that I'm kind of like, I'm not too sure about, but conversely, I think when a relationship ends, if a man ends a relationship a few times, it's something that he didn't know about her. Something that evolved after they formalized or finalized the actual relationship.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because when you talk about things like that, why is it that in the East, arranged marriages have a much, much higher success rate than marriages in the West where it's by choice? Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think a lot of times, man, before you get to the point of going all in, you might want to spend some period of time, and maybe it's different for everybody. Maybe it's different, in every situation, but an appropriate amount of time doing the sharing, the listening, and the giving and receiving of who you are. Like I said, the listening and whatever the opposite of listening, to get to know one another. Otherwise, she's going to end up getting into something that she knew from the beginning she shouldn't have, overlooking red flags, and or he's going to end up getting into something that he didn't take long enough to actually, see and to pick out of something that could be a huge flaw in their relationship.
Yeah, and that's why we say the best time to have marriage counseling is before you get married. The best time to have a counselor or a therapist, a pastor, or a preach, somebody you trust that can act as a mediator to get you to come in together and have these conversations in a way that you'll actually listen to the other person and actually hear, because we always hear things from our point of view. And that's why language is such a hard thing to do for communication, for real true communication. That's why it takes time to learn how this other person communicates, how you communicate, how to actually listen to how they communicate, and having a mediator or moderator go, that's not what he said. But a lot of times you don't hear what the person says, you hear what you think they said.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions is, what did you hear me say, and what I heard you say was?
Yeah.
That way you can actually repeat back what you heard. So they'll say, that's not what I said, well, that's what I heard.
Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about in the bad ways when 50-50 is very real. And I'm talking experience and direct knowledge. There ain't no empirical nothing. This is what I know for a fact.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the deep, dark, dirty secrets of cursed past life right after these break.
Boom. I'm gonna clear that.
Welcome to behind the scenes where you see us drink and make weird noises.
Do we make? I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm doubting it, man. I'm gonna go ahead and doubt your whole thing. I don't know if you can
You would
hear.
actually watch any of our episodes after they air? You would hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do quality control right here. See what I can do?
That's your 100%. I don't.
You know what I realized?
What?
We've been behind on the bus route. I just uploaded like 4 hours.
Oh, for real?
I've been forgetting to
Nah.
get everything into the
Ooh, that's true. Yeah. We need to figure out like our. we need to figure out what we're doing.
We need to know any good virtual assistants.
We need to figure out what we're doing, man. We need to figure out what we're doing. We just up here talking, man. This is the whole thing we need to figure out yet. But anyhow, we're gonna stick with it.
One step at a time.
Boom. Are you ready? Segment 4. And we're back. We back.
It's a man.
We back.
It's a bad boy.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mountain City.
Hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
Eyes straight ahead.
That's right.
10 and 2.
10 and 2. Keep a straight face, and the person next to you at the traffic light won't even know that you're listening to a bunch of cray-cray.
Cray.
And whatever you do, don't pick your nose at the red light. It always trips me out, man. You sit at the red light, you look over, and that person is just up there like digging for gold, man. It's like,
You're in
dude,
the whole little world. Why you gotta be up in
my
the world?
point is, man, don't nobody want to see all that. If I'm at a red light, man,
You're the guy that walks by somebody's house window. Like, why they all running around?
maybe. I close my blinds. When people got their blinds open, I walk by. If you got your blinds open and it's nighttime, you want people to look in. So
Eric started a tinning company. He wants you to.
I'm just saying, There's a reason I got my windows tinted. Is all I'm saying. When you at a red light, if you don't have tinted windows, stop digging up your nose for real. Some of y'all doing it right now. Listen to this thing. Stop doing that because the person that next to you, they don't want to see all that, man. They got stuff on their mind, man. They dealing with things.
At least they're being safe and they're not trying to get that big old boogie out while they're driving 90 miles an
Well,
hour.
no, because it takes longer than 90 seconds at a light. You started at a red light, but you keep going like at least for 1 or 2 traffic lights after that.
What are you digging in your nose? Gold?
I don't know, man, but I see there's one time it was a girl too, man. She was like a girl younger than me. But
she's trying to stud off her nose.
no, she was looking for something, dude. I mean, she was like, I don't know, she was like trying to scratch some on her brain. Her brain must have been injured. Her girl was like that. She was, I don't know, man. She was doing something, man. But don't do that at the red light, people. You get the red light first, especially if you don't have tinted windows. Don't get up in there because the person next to you, man, they struggling with something. They really don't need to look over and see that.
Kirk's not 50-50 about this.
No, I'm not. I'm 100% on that. Speaking of 100%, let me tell you when 50-50 is very real.
Let's get deep dark. Let's go down.
50-50 is very real. Down the rabbit hole. 50-50 will get really real when you do it wrong, when you're not 100-100, when you don't take the time to get to the point of being safe with the 100-100, and when you do it all wrong and you end up in front of the man or woman. When you end up in front of the person sitting up there in the front with a black robe on, and you're at one table, the other person's at the other table, this person who you once said, this is the one, this is everything I've been looking for, and you're perfect, you complete me. And you pull the Jerry Maguire, then all of a sudden, you know, maybe you had kids, and you had a house, and you went on vacations, you got pictures of y'all on Facebook, and man, you was professing all your love. Now you cross the table from this person. This is all of a sudden when 50-50 becomes real, because guess what? Everything you are, everything you have gets reduced down to percentages. And the entire process of this dissolution of a marriage is about making everything that entity was a percentage. And how to divide that percentage out. And so whether it's child support, then it's okay, now who has them what percent of the time, and who has them the other percent of the time, and who makes what percent. You make X number of percent, and you make X number of percent, and so they factor all that in, and next thing you know, your percent is higher than that percent, so you got to pay this person. Then you figure out the 50-50 of the bills, 50-50 of the house, 50-50 of all that kind of stuff. So when you do all of this wrong, you will end up at some point making your entire life all about percentages of 50-50. And I almost even say, man, this is so radical that, man, we might get canceled for me saying this.
No, because actually, I'm just going to dig a little deeper into this hole we've just been digging. So ladies, we've talked about this before. One of the reasons that men are skeptical and a little gun shy is because that system is not geared in our favor. And then we look at the statistics, we look at the percentages. 78% of divorces are filed by women. The divorce courts are not set into a man's favor, so 80% of women get custody, they get child support, they get half, whatever. Even if you have a prenup, most of those, if they're over a few years old, they get tossed out because of whatever. And there are lawyers, because of business, they're not really having your best interest at heart, especially not the father. So they come in there saying, well, did you ever feel threatened? Did he ever scare you? Okay, now we can take half his stuff. We can take more than half his stuff. So, gentlemen, keep that in mind. When we're talking going at 100%, make sure you have vetted this person. Make sure you have vetted. I don't care how cute her butt is. I don't care how she makes you feel. I don't care what she looks like on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Make sure you get to see all the deep, dark uglies inside. Get some counseling, get some therapy, get the mediator, and talk these things out before you go down the road. We want you to be 100% committed. And I even mentioned before the break, it's interesting that arranged marriages have a much higher success rate than marriages in the West of choice, love, and the Brady Bunch fantasy. And it's because basically they did the Cortez thing, they burned the ships, they're both 100% committed, and of course, yeah, they have repercussions. There are familial repercussions to if they dissolve the marriage or if it doesn't work out. But for the most part, so this is how we do things. We are 100% committed, now we're married, and they grow together. And one of the reasons that they have such long-lasting, successful relationships is because they learn to respect each other and love each other for who they are, not who they think they are.
Yeah, now here's the reality though. As much as I just got finished saying that when you in that courtroom and or if you're trying to work everything out beforehand and all that kind of stuff, I mean at some point, even if you figure everything out, at some point you still got to go in the courtroom. You still have to hand it all to a judge, and the judge still has to agree to the terms that you have agreed to outside the court. Either way, the whole point of the dissolution is to have equity. You know, as you leave the marriage, or as you dissolve the entity, the legal entity that is a marriage. The reality is you never really leave 50-50. You never, I can't think of any circumstance where somebody can say they won a divorce except the lawyer, right? There's no winning in a divorce. There's no winning in a dissolution because even if you're Jeff Bezos and you got, $100 billion, she's still walking away with $45 billion, right? I mean, and so maybe the impact could be less depending on how much you have and all that kind of stuff. But in any case, your life is still never back to equal. Your life is still never back to the same. I almost wish they would revamp that whole system. Make both people account for 50% of parenting time, unless there's some exceptions and maybe somebody can petition but I think the default should be 50-50 parenting time, and the default should be minimum, whatever the minimum, some kind of minimum level or minimum standard for cash out, support on either side. I mean, I think both people should be responsible for not only having equal amount of time with the kids, but also providing for themselves after the divorce.
Yeah, and to all you successful men out there, be extra careful, bet much more carefully. Maybe even get private detectives and do some dirt and do some searches. I mean, you look at all the divorce settlements. I mean, Kanye and Kim, she's getting $200,000 a month from Kanye and spousal support, child support. I mean, that's a lot. So you get the butterflies, and you want to have this Arctic lover syndrome, but then at some point you got to get your head straight and realize that this is a contractual agreement. And yes, we want you to be 100% in. We want you to be in this relationship 100% to make it most successful. Just know what you're getting into 100%. Don't go in cross-eyed and with your head in the clouds and thinking like everything you get sideswiped and go, I didn't expect none of that. What happened?
Now, most of us aren't in a position to go get private detectives. You went left on that one.
I'm just saying.
You do what you got to do. I mean, all this is circling back to the point is, do your diligence before you get to the point of going all in. At some point, you should go all in when you're going all in. But know what you're going all in to, because when you come out, your 50 is not going to be a true 50. Your 50 is going to hurt, and it's going to cost you something. But at the same time, go into that thing, man. When you find that right person, and there are ways, even if you're not well off, if somebody is, when I hear that, if somebody is writing a check for $200 million a month, okay, well that tells me that A, there are some things that weren't discussed or figured out ahead of time, and B, that tells me that the person writing the check, it's hurting him, but he's still, he's not down to zero at the end of writing that check. So when I hear that, I mean, those are the kind of things that go through my mind. But in any case, when you are going into some scenario where you're going to be going all in, you better make sure you're going all in with the right person. You better be going through some stuff, ahead of time, making sure you know what that person is bringing in with their 100%. Their 100% ain't all, rainbows and unicorns. Their 100% is some baggage. So that's something from their past. That's credit, that's debt, that's legal stuff, that's emotional stuff, psychological stuff, whatever it is. But you better be sure what that other person's 100 is before you want their 100 to put in with your 100.
And what I would really advise too, and one of the reasons I do coaching the way I do shadow coaching and wholeness coaching, because you as a man or as a woman, you as a person, you need to understand your shadow. Stop hiding from it. You need to understand what you're capable of, where your traumas come from. You need to understand those things, and that will help you to be able to vet and understand who will be the best match for you. So it's not just about how you talk, it's not just about the words you use. We can all study nonviolent communication and have really nice conversations that are non-threatening, but really knowing who you are 100%, knowing your yin and your yang, your dark and your light, knowing that whole side of yourself, and accepting that and integrating that will help you become 100% in your relationships, 100% in your business, 100% in your life.
So in totality, at any one particular moment, your relationship, and if it's appropriate, your marriage is not going to be 50-50 at any one moment. Now, ideally, over the course of time and in the arc of time in history, you can look back and say, okay, even though, for a bulk of this time, maybe one person was taking a step back for the other person's career's sake, but it worked out in the long run. But to have the expectation that today or this week or this month or even this year, I'm expecting, whatever, I'm expecting to go this far, and it doesn't work that way. It's a complete myth to expect that at any one point in time, you're going to feel like it's even 50-50, whether it's going in or coming out of that whole thing. But you got to be smart. Not only do you have to be smart, you have to be willing and healed for both people to bring their healed 100% into any relationship.
Yeah, and knowing all of you, knowing your stuff, coming into those relationships with everything on the table, being open, honest, being vulnerable. These are the ways that you get to, number one, get to really know somebody intimately and get to love and respect them. But then you also get to bring who you are and the best. And then you support each other. You get to bring in, this is my good stuff, this is my bad stuff, and here it is, honey. Now you get to support me when I'm at my bad stuff, because there is a relationship dynamic that is 100%. And each one of you has to bring in whatever that percentage is that the other one's not bringing. So sometimes you're bringing 80, sometimes they're bringing 20, sometimes they're bringing 80, you're bringing 20.
Yeah.
That's how we do relationships.
Absolutely. And over a period of time in a healthy relationship, whether somebody is doing 80 right now and somebody's doing 20, or whether somebody, or vice versa, at some point in time in the long term, it's mutually beneficial and you both win. It should be a win-win-win over a period of time, but we got to set our expectations right. We got to do this thing.
You got to burn those ships, set them on fire. You got to commit 100% and make it a win-win. You got to be all in together. And if you were always 1 foot out the door, 1 foot on the banana peel and ready to jump ship, you're never going to have a successful relationship, because relationships take work.
Boom. This was good work, man. Good work. Good stuff.
Good work, y'all. Thank you for not turning that dial. Thank you for liking and subscribing.
Hey, if you got a red light, stop digging up in your nose, please, because that ain't cool.
See, now you're going to get some trouble.
I'm just saying. Stop digging up your nose at a red light. Don't nobody want to see all that.
I saw you right there. Don't want that on your seat.
And then never mind. I'll stop.
Don't put that there.
All right, we'll be out. We'll catch y'all next time.
Men of Masculinity.
Out.